JB,
What's up?
welcome to Podcastina.
It's nice to be here. Thank you.
It's nice to have you.
Yeah. This was great. Like I was telling you before we started recording that I haven't been over here since I dated someone who lived in the building next to you. So it was a nice trip down memory lane of like, wait, where am I going? Wait, what's going on?
Happy to host you and re-traumatize you all in one swoop.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I'm just reliving all the mistakes. Like, oh man, if I had zigged when I zagged, maybe I'd be here more often.
You know, Marina Del Rey is lovely, and people have all these misconceptions about it.
What are misconceptions of Marina Del Rey?
People think it's very far away.
Well, where are they coming from?
Honestly, anywhere, I think.
Yeah.
I remember watching an episode of Vanderpump Rules where one of the characters moved to "Don't already roll your eyes at me."
So dumb.
2 seconds in.
just so dumb. I'm such an entertainment snob.
Oh, that's fine.
I just am. In terms of stories, I just go, because here's my belief. I think reality TV is ruining television and film. Like, I think
there's an argument to be made there.
It's so cost effective to do it, and people are so bad at watching things. I think reality TV is for people who have ADHD. Like, I think from the standpoint of, like, it's not really about paying attention. It's about something's on while I can do other stuff, and then I'll follow whatever I get is what I get. But, like, the plot ain't hurt by missing whatever amount of time I was looking at my phone.
That's why I watch it and love it so much. So you're absolutely right. It is a product of an ADHD brain, really adapts to that kind of thing.
I've dated a lot of women, and that seems to be the consistent in my research. Like, I'm not judging. I'm just putting data together and going, well, there's a correlation.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Yeah, I'm a big story person. Like, a big story person. Like, I want a story to be clever and intricate and almost like a puzzle. So I want to watch something that, like, I have to pay attention because I want to see if I can figure it out before they reveal whatever, right? So then, like, I've dated a ton of people who, like, they just talk the whole time. And I go, you're missing the part. You're missing the thing. You're not going to be able to figure this out. And they don't care. Like, they just don't care about the puzzle. I'm like, the puzzle's everything. That's the whole thing. Like, who watches Knives Out and doesn't want to try to solve it first?
Oh.
And what are we doing here?
Yeah.
You know? So, yeah, that's where I'm
Well,
at.
you're missing out.
So you say.
No, but they all gave Marina Del Rey such a hard time because the show was mostly based in West Hollywood, and I actually used to live in West Hollywood, which you can say is fairly central for LA.
I think so. That's fair.
But they were all like, oh, we'd rather drive to Palm Springs than drive to Marina Del Rey. And it's like, bruh, it's half an hour.
Yeah, they're being dramatic. That's not bad. I mean, and again, like, maybe that's relative to what their lives are. You know, like, I don't know what your daily commutes are, right? So I don't know how discouraged by driving you are relative to daily commutes. You know, I don't have daily commutes. So when I got to drive, I go, yeah, sure, I'll do it. Mm-hmm. So it's not, you know, like, I'm not down here all the time. So I go, yeah, I'll take a drive, whatever.
I live a truck driver's life.
Do you really?
Yeah, because I drive a lot for my day job.
Yeah.
It's different all the time. So I work as a traveling notary during the day. And I'm just driving from appointment to appointment. And I won't take certain appointments if they're too far. I try to keep it on the west side. But for the right amount of money, I've driven to Palm Springs. I've driven to San Diego for appointments.
I get you. Yeah. So you're like an upscale Uber.
I am.
You know what I mean?
I'm an Uber for documents.
Yeah. No, I like that. Because I like the idea that there's a class system to it. And you're too good for the common Uber work. Like, I'll drive the same miles, but what's the delivery? You know what I mean? I like that. People, ooh, yeah.
I used to be a Lyft driver. When I started my notary business back in 2017, I was a Lyft driver and a nanny.
Okay.
So I've done the whole thing.
Oof.
And I'll tell you this, I was a 5-star Lyft driver.
Good for you. Mm-hmm. Good for you.
Because how you do anything is how you do everything.
Okay. All right. You're going to be a mom. That's for sure. Like, well, that's what I'm hearing. That's for sure a mom lesson to instill upon a person. Yeah, totally. A mom or a coach. You let me know what's more likely.
Yeah, I think mom would be easier than coach.
Okay. All right.
Honestly.
What, did you play sports?
A little bit.
What did you play?
Track and field.
Yeah. What did you run?
400s.
I ran the 400s.
Did you really?
That was my event. That's all.
I had no business doing that. I think at that point, a few of my girls in my peer group growing up, they all got accepted into what was our, like, not cheerleading, but we had a drill team, which was kind of a little more serious than the cheerleaders. The drill team danced more.
Okay.
And everyone that got into it went and did that. And I don't even remember if I auditioned or not, but I didn't do drill team. And I was like, oh, I have to do something. And it felt like running was the thing. I always had this mentality of, I want to be a runner. I identify with running. And actually, I hate running and I'm terrible at it.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
Did you ever watch the movies on Steve Prefontaine?
No.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do.
Okay, so for those listening at home, if you just don't know who Steve Prefontaine is, he was a runner for the University of Oregon. This is back before Nike had officially been created. His coach is one of the people who helped create Nike and the Nike shoes. He was a cross-country runner, and he was like an absolute phenom. And he was breaking these records and reimagining how you were supposed to go about running long distance. There used to be these strategies with how to do it, right? And Steve didn't believe in any of the philosophies. His argument was, in a race, the spirit of the race is that you are running as hard as you can the entire time, and whatever that time is that you come in, that is your actual time. And then these coaches were like, no, it's about setting paces, right? And the idea is like, if you run this pace and you, I guess, monitor your splits, you'll inevitably end up running faster than if you had just tried to haul ass the whole time.
Depends on the event, because
Sure.
you can't hit it in that way if you're doing distance, I don't think.
So that was the thing. So distance was the exact argument. His thing was like, I don't care how many miles we're running, I'm giving you everything right now.
Oof.
And he was smoking people with this, just to be clear, right? And everybody else was not.
Well,
doing
is
this
the reason
philosophy.
you know his name.
Yeah, so they literally, it's a famous shirt. There used to be a shirt with a stop sign on it, and it would say "Stop Pre," and that's what everybody would wear to the events because he was just unstoppable, right? To the point where there's a point in the movie, and this is why it stuck in my head. We saw this in high school. Whoever the actress was who played the pink Power Ranger when we were playing kids, she's also in the
wanted
movie.
to be her.
Yeah, I mean, what girl didn't want to be her, right? She was like having sex with him in a hotel before a meet, but they were doing it like in a handstand, and he falls over and cuts his foot on the heater in the hotel room, and then the next day he has to run the race with like a seriously lacerated foot. Like, it's not a small thing. And his rival almost beats him. And his rival comes over talking trash because he's like, yo, I almost got you. I'm coming for you. And then he takes off his shoe, and you realize like his foot's like almost falling off. And the guy's like, ah! It's just like this realization of, even with this guy almost not having a foot, he still couldn't beat him. Like, that's how dominant Pre was. No, I'm trying to remember why I brought this up. I brought Steve Prefontaine up for a reason relative to
Well, we're talking about
running.
distance running.
Yeah. But I think he's just like this wildly interesting person that people don't know about, but he sort of like has influence over like a ton of what you're doing culturally because of like the brand of Nike and like what Nike grew into, and people don't know like it started there.
Do you think he walked so David Goggins could run?
Yeah, I think that's
say?
very fair to say. It's very fair to say. I think David Goggins would have loved Steve Prefontaine.
Yeah.
Because I think his whole mentality was just like, fuck science, just be hard. Like, I think that really was it. And there was something to that. But like, the movie is about how the coach teaches him to run the way that they coach. And then when you see how much faster he's running, you go like, Jesus Christ, he's even better. So it was like this really scary thing of like, this guy was better than you when he didn't even do it right. And then when he did it right, it was like, okay, well, now it's just not even fair.
I have a hard time reconciling people like that, where I'm like, okay, I understand and I can appreciate the perfectionism side of it.
Yeah.
Whatever it is that's crawling in their skin so much to make them work that hard, I kind of think it's a little bit of like running away from demons a bit.
1,000%.
Because when I've been in that place where I'm like, I don't need sleep, I'll sleep when I'm dead, I'm just going to work harder than everybody. Yeah. It's never really coming from a place of nourishment and love.
I never looked up to an athlete who seemed like a good person.
Fair.
Does that make sense?
And I think you have to be, I mean, I know there's stories of insane borderline child abuse upbringings with some of these athletes where they're overcompensating now to be like, oh, well, my dad didn't let me relax at all and he wanted me to be the best, so here we are. But I'm like, where's the compassion in all of that? Is that a good place to be operating from?
It's
Is that a healthy
circle.
Place?
There's compassion. They're just not the ones winning.
Yeah.
So it's like, if we're
right.
talking sports, we're like, well, no, that's not in the winner's circle. That's how the winner got there.
Right.
There is this thing where I go, kids are developing at much earlier ages relative to the sports that we're seeing now, right? And so like when you're seeing guys who are phenoms in basketball, with the exception of like a freak of nature like a Victor Wembanyama who's 7'6", right? The rest of them, like, they were like such elite players at such a young age, like so much younger than I was when I started developing, that it almost seems like there's less time for a kid to be a kid because you've got to identify these traits early in case they do want to go that route to make sure that they even still have a chance. Like, I read Pete Sampras' biography years ago.
I don't know who he is.
Pete Sampras is debatably the greatest American tennis player of all time, male tennis player. It's between him and Andre Agassi, and Andre Agassi is obviously the more famous one because he was like the wild boy.
That name I've heard of.
So yeah, his counterpart was Pete Sampras, who was like the vanilla, the white bread version of whatever. But they're both incredible. But Pete's story, if I remember this correctly, was like he grew up in a non-wealthy family. He got seen hitting a tennis ball once. I don't remember if he was like hitting up against a wall or something, but it was something where like he's not out playing tennis, but somebody identified that, hey, that kid shouldn't be able to do that at that age. That is particularly interesting what he's doing. And that encouraged the parents to take him to like some kind of a training facility or whatever. And they're like, this kid's got like a special knack for this thing. And so it was all about how this family kind of uprooted their lives and moved to a different part of the country just to really give him a chance to pursue tennis. Not
you hear
knowing
that
where he
with
could
a
get.
lot. You hear that with like ice skating
Yeah.
or golf or anything.
I just learned that about Nicole Richie, that she was an ice skater.
Really? I
Yeah,
didn't know
and
that.
she got forced to choose going to college or going pro in ice skating, and she chose college. And I don't know if it was the right decision or not, but that's what she chose. I was like,
She would have been
well,
Nicole
look at that.
Richie
She
anyways.
she wouldn't have been on The Simple Life.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think those are such interesting stories that you don't tend to hear that often because you only hear the success story, right? How many people moved cross country for their kid and their kid turned out to be nobody, right?
Mm-hmm.
Relative to the thing they were pursuing, right? I'm sure they're good people, but there's something to that, right? You look at the Williams sisters, right? And Richard's plan, and he was just like, we're gonna put them through this kind of rigorous training and every day. And the other sisters, they don't get to play. They're here to pick up the balls. We're only working on these two. What if they never made it? Then maybe he's just an abusive father. Then like he's not like Joe Jackson. At least has he did become a star to fall back on. At least Mike did become Michael Jackson. So Joe could go, yeah, you can say what you want about the whoopings, but look where he's at.
Yeah.
Right. But there's so many who are just like, oh no, he's in jail. I whooped him and now he's an inmate somewhere. That's wild.
That story doesn't get told. But
It doesn't get told. I want to hear those
too.
stories.
Yeah.
Let me hear the psycho dads where it went wrong. I think that's way more interesting. Those are the movies I want to hear. Yeah, where his son came in fourth. Like it wasn't even like there was nothing to have faith in.
That's what's scary about kind of having this perfectionist outlook on things and the way that I've treated myself.
Yeah.
I would not want to implement my own treatment with myself onto children.
Really?
I don't think
you
it would be
change?
very compassionate.
Okay, so what do you think it is? And then what would need to change in your mind?
I think I'm the way that I am, which is very like type A, staying up till midnight, sometimes working on something, even if I'm not getting paid for it,
Sure.
just because I need the project to go a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
I was almost too supported,
Yeah, I get that.
and I was a little adultified as a kid.
Yeah.
And so me being like performative as a kid was really rewarded, and I would get positive attention for that.
I think we have very similar childhoods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it wasn't necessarily, not that they ignored me for just existing, but the times when I got the most validation was when I was doing something fascinating or like turning a curtain into a dress and putting on a show. And
Yeah.
that's when I was getting all the attention and clapping and this and that. And so I'm like, okay, how can I perform all the time?
Totally.
Bada bing, bada boom. That's how you get a comedian.
We had a literal trophy room in my house.
Oh, shit.
And I was like, wait, what else have I accomplished? Whatever it was, we didn't celebrate it in a room, that's for sure. But like we had a designated room for all the trophies and ribbons and all the things that I had amassed over the years, right? And it was like they weren't on display anywhere. It was just you open the door, there's a bunch of trophies in there. But that was there was something to that. Like I'm not sure I did any kind of an activity as a kid that wasn't ultimately like reward based.
No, me
And
neither.
I always got rewarded. So
Yeah.
that became my identity. It's like, that's JB and he's good at stuff,
Yep.
But I also became like jack of all trades, master of none, right? Like I'm not the best at anything, but I can jump in a lot of things, which is useless. Like it is wildly useless now, When you're a kid, they go like, you got so much potential. But I think that's because they think you're eventually going to choose a road.
Right.
And then when you do, you go like, oh, I'm pretty mid on this road now. Like, I'm just capable of doing it.
Yeah, I was a mid dancer for a while. I got
Yeah.
enrolled into dance classes pretty early.
What kind of dance?
All sorts. I think I took about 8 or 9 years consecutively of different dance classes. And initially it was just kind of classical, like a little bit of, I did about a year of ballet.
Okay.
I did 2 years of ballroom, and I did used to get blue ribbons in ballroom.
That's cool.
That was towards the end. And then
Can I acknowledge something
Yeah.
that just happened in my head?
Yeah.
You said you did ballet.
Mm-hmm.
And based on what I know about ballet is I know that it's very rough on your toes. But my man brain went, don't ask about her toes because weird people are into that stuff. And I don't want to come off like I'm one of those people.
I didn't do enough ballet for my toes to
curious.
get weird.
Okay.
But I appreciate you asking.
I almost went, well, how are your toes? And I was like, don't ask that. Like,
I didn't do it like that. There was no black swan or anything. It was
Okay.
like ballet was kind of this in between. We had this dance teacher for a while where we did more like modern, normal. How do I say this?
Can I be honest with you?
Yeah.
My black brain coming from not a place of technical dancing.
Mm-hmm.
When I hear someone white say modern dancing, in my head I go, that is a white dance teacher saying they're teaching a hip hop class.
It basically was.
I don't know
yeah.
that
No,
to
you're
be
right.
true.
It is
but
true.
That's what
It
my
is
brain
true.
says.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, that's Julia Stiles going, I'll teach you how to stanky leg.
1,000%.
And I go, oh, okay.
That's
Modern
what it was.
dance.
Yeah. So just imagine and the program that I was into was a bunch of Russian and Ukrainian kids, most of whom were Jewish because this was the JCC, which is our like Jewish YMCA.
Love that.
So we would go there after school 2-3 days a week, and we had our dance classes, and it definitely was like kind of hip hop or
Sure.
like a little bit of swing and a little bit of jazz. So it was kind of everything. It was this amalgamation. What's the word I'm looking for?
I don't know.
Forget it.
I wish I could have helped,
It was
but
a
I don't know.
smorgasbord of dance classes.
Sure, I get
That's
that.
what it was. It wasn't concretely like, oh, we're just doing a hip hop dance today.
Yeah.
We're just doing a jazz dance today. Like they kind of did a little bit of everything, and then we would have recitals every 6 months or so, and we would present our handful of dances.
Yeah.
And then Ilya got let go for whatever reason, our dance teacher who
Mm-hmm.
would make us walk around balancing textbooks on our heads so that we learned how to walk without like too much bounce.
Totally. That sounds non-abusive.
This is the most Soviet ass shit
yeah,
too.
yeah. This sounds like the plot of A League of Their Own. To play baseball, you must first learn how to be a lady.
Yeah, it was like we'd get
"Is
off
that
of school
necessary?"
and then we'd go walk with books on our head, and then we would do algebra, and then we would like do drama class with classic Russian literature.
What was the relevance of algebra to the dance routines?
None.
No, okay.
It was just part of this after school program where they were
Just,
like, how do
reciting
we
Pythagorean theorem while
yeah,
you're hitting.
can't
I'm
let
just
these
like,
kids
okay.
relax. It was so wild. And then whatever thing it was that caused him to be let go, they then started cycling through different teachers that they were auditioning for his replacement.
Yeah.
One of them was a ballet teacher, which is how I accidentally ended up in ballet for a stint.
Got it.
And then it
Did you
ended
enjoy it at all?
not really, because at that point I already wasn't flexible enough to really be a good ballerina, because I think that's one of those things that, again, you have to start super young and have like a talent for it. And at that point I was probably 11 or 12, so the ship had sailed on being any
Yeah, you
kind
were
of
old.
Yeah, I was too old to be a
What are
ballerina.
you, middle school? Oh,
Yeah.
get out of here. Get out of here. Go get a job. Like, yeah, that's so wild. But that is most things now. It seems like so much of what seems like it makes people special are that they are specialists at a thing, right? And you don't become a specialist by joining something late. So there's almost something to like parenthood, the idea of like, if you're going to have a kid, be prepared to expose them to things so early on that you can maybe get a hint of like where their interests lie and go like, okay, cool, we got in early enough. Let's lean in that direction.
Is there a thing that you wish you would have learned early?
Oh yeah, tennis for sure. Like, because I was an athlete, so it's one of those things where when I was growing up, I played every sport for the most part, like all the majors, all the major team sports, I should say. And what ended up happening was I was successful in all of them relative to other kids. Like I was beating whatever local kids were around in these events, right? And so eventually my dad said, you need to pick one sport because I'm not driving you to all this all the time, right? And I chose basketball because it's the one I love the most. And I got a scholarship and I went to college and I did all this stuff, right? But as I learned about my mentality and my physicality and my body type and what I actually am elite at, that transfers to tennis more than anything else I played. So had I been able to identify that younger, there's this world where I go like, who knows who I might have been, you know? It's not to say I would have been somebody, but I do think I actually would have had a better chance of going further in tennis than I ended up going in basketball. And I went pretty far in basketball. So it's in the back of my mind, I always go like, I just picked the wrong one.
Do you play tennis recreationally now?
Not at all.
No?
No, I used to hit with my mom every now and then, right? And picked up a little bit of a knack for it, but no training, no nothing like that, right? But as I started learning the techniques, they just felt so natural and not difficult relative to some of the techniques I had learned in basketball. The footwork feels very similar, like the reaction time, the hand-eye coordination. There are elements of it. It's lateral speed, which is all playing defense. Like,
yeah, you're chasing a ball at the end of the day.
So I just go like, you know what? This doesn't feel that foreign, man. I just got here too late. Like I'm never going to play at that level. So part of me is like,
but you don't want to play it as a hobby?
Now my knees are shot. That's really the reason. Like, otherwise I would do it. But yeah, it's just one of those things. I identified it later where I went, I might have had a shot at that. And I just never would have known.
Okay, so what are your feelings about pickleball?
Not into it, but I don't judge. You know what it is?
But that solves the knee issue because it's all
That's why I
senior
don't
citizens.
like it, though. It doesn't feel athletic. Yeah, it's a game that feels lacking in athleticism, and I'm sure they'll argue otherwise. But I just think any game where old people can have a shot at beating you doesn't feel like the most athletic game. You know, I'll also argue bowling is not a sport. You know,
it's not.
I have a very hot take on what classifies a sport.
Let's go.
All right, so basically, and I understand that I am essentially making up my own definition. But what I'm trying to say here is that we need a new word to decipher between these things, because I think these things are drastically different.
Games.
Yes. So my whole thing is a sport to me is anything you can play defense in, right? If you can't play defense, to me, it's not a sport, or at the very least, you are not peers with people who have to play against someone who plays defense. They're different. Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods are not peers to me. Michael Jordan is above Tiger Woods, and they are not close. And Tiger Woods can still be great at golf. I'm not taking away anything that he's great at.
So golf isn't a sport by your definition?
No, it's a game with so many variables that you're just comparing scores. But even then, you're playing at different times of the day. So you have different courses. But you're then going by the same score. You're not varying it up based on what you had. The sun's over here, so the grass lays this way, which means the ball rolls like this. Now the sun's over here, same day, but it's my turn to play. Now the ball rolls like this because the grass is shifted over here. You're playing literally two different places and comparing scores. You know what I'm saying? Like, to me, that's not a sport. That's a game, and you're comparing scores. Races are races. That you're not playing defense. You're running in your lane. You're comparing times, right? Unless you're doing like long distance, and then you can kind of like get in each other's way, and there's draft speed. Like, I'll listen to that argument a little more. But my point was, what makes it a sport is that there is a literal human brain trying to actively stop you. That, to me, makes it sport, right?
Okay.
I'm willing to believe chess is more of a sport than track and field is. And I ran track and field, and I respect track and field, but they don't feel equal to me relative to, say, basketball or football or baseball or tennis or these things. There's not a literal human and a human brain actively trying to get in the way and prevent you from doing it. You know what I mean? So for me, that's like golf would be like if I was playing basketball relative to golf, no one could guard me. I could take all the time I want to make the shot, right? And then I get to yell at people when they try to distract me. Like, I think golf is soft. And it's a sport that I respect the skill of, but I also think the idea that fans have to shut up while you hit is garbage, because I grew up in a sport where they're doing everything to stop you at the free throw line, where like the University of like, what is it? Is Arizona State University, I think they have a literal curtain of distraction. Where,
really?
Yeah, look this up. So when opposing teams will shoot free throws at an Arizona State basketball game, there's a literal curtain, and then right before the guy's going to shoot, they'll pull out the curtain, and they'll have like a creative disguise behind it. They'll have like guys like fake giving birth to babies. They'll have there's all kinds of stuff, and celebrities have jumped in on it. It's like a whole thing. It's so
That's
fun.
Kind of cool.
And I just imagine doing that in golf.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think Tiger's had people ejected for like snapping a picture when he shot because he like heard the shutter. And I'm going like, I've been called the N-word at the free throw line. Like, what do you heard a camera? And that's okay, dude. Sure.
Yeah.
All right. So I don't even think they're relatively close.
It works for a lot of things. It
Yeah.
doesn't work, I don't think, for surfing.
Okay.
Like, where would you qualify that?
It's not a sport.
Okay.
That's where I qualify it.
Yeah.
There's no defense. Now, I think the hot take would be, yeah, well, I'm playing against the earth.
Yeah,
and I'd be like,
you are.
I like that take.
There's sharks. That's defense.
Yeah. So my whole point is, I'm not trying to minimize what it takes to do the sport. Mm-hmm. I still want to be like, you are great at this thing. But what I am saying is, if there was another surfer out there trying to stop you from surfing, now we got a sport.
There is in competitive surfing.
Okay, in
that's
what way?
where it's different.
You're not like just taking turns on waves? It's just
no,
like
when you're
away?
in a heat, it's dependent on, sometimes they'll have like a paddle off. So there's turns, but then there's also opportunities to snatch someone's turn if you're able to get to the peak, paddle your way to the peak faster.
I like that.
Yeah, so there is a defensive element that way competitively, where you have to be correct in picking the right waves, in going at the right time, not losing your turn at an opportunity when you could have gotten a better wave, something like that. So there's a bit of a defensive element to it.
That I love. And so that I didn't know about. So that would make me classify it on the other end of like, see, that feels like sport to me.
Whereas individually, when you're out surfing in the water, that is not
sport. Yeah. And also, like, if I'm just shooting on a basketball court alone, I'm not playing a sport. I'm shooting a basketball.
Okay.
So that's the way I would compare those two. You sold me on that, because I don't know enough about surfing to know that there was an element of defense in terms of how you get the wave in the first place and how you essentially claim the wave as yours.
It's kind of the only sport that I pay any attention to.
Really?
Yeah.
Nothing else?
Not really. I mean, I'll enjoy, like, when the Super Bowl's on, like, I like it. It's fun to watch.
Are you watching the game, or are you one of the
people
who's
watching the
like
game when it's on? Or if I will never go out of my way to watch a football game.
Okay.
But if it's on and I'm in the room, I will pay attention to it and get into it. I've enjoyed the playoffs before. I've very much enjoyed.
What's a football storyline that got you? Because, like, all right, you're watching the game, but, like, what are you even pulling for?
I mean, it was fun this year seeing the Eagles just absolutely cream the Chiefs. I did enjoy that.
It was great.
And I was with my sister-in-law who's from Philly, who's like really invested. And so it was enjoyable just to be with someone who like really cares about that team. So that was fun.
Yeah.
And then I remember how cool one year, whenever it was, like Atlanta was in it and they were really up, but then it like shifted.
You know what's funny about that Super Bowl? So you're talking about the Matt Ryan Super Bowl where they were up, I believe it was 28-10.
Yeah, it was like crazy. It looked like a sure thing.
Yeah, I went to bed at halftime.
Oh,
and
my
I woke
God.
up to that the next morning, and they were like, "Hey, by the way, Tom Brady won that fucking game." And I was like, "Wait, what do you mean?
Yeah.
How? In what world?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, he won that."
There's just certain moves where I can see it, and even knowing as little as I do about football, still be like, that was fucking cool.
Sometimes I will watch something not because I'm enjoying it, but because I am forecasting how people are going to react in my head, and that is making me enjoy it more. So like Kendrick Lamar's Super Bowl performance, I'm a Kendrick fan. I knew what was going on, so I was enjoying it. But I was also enjoying the discourse that I knew that was coming, because I also, I grew up in a swing state. I know both sides of the line.
Me too.
I assume I know what they're thinking right now, and boy, would I love to look into those households right now and just see how they're like, I don't even understand what this is.
Yeah.
Do you know what he's saying? Like, oh my God, I would have ate it up.
Well, as I was watching it, I was with my brother too. So he got a text from my stepdad asking what the hell was going on during the Kendrick text. And then he jokingly told him to go ask our little brother. And then my mom separately texted me and was like, I don't understand the halftime show. And then I, just to kind of add fuel to the fire, was like, you should text our little brother.
Yeah, that's great. No,
and they didn't even know we were together. So we were just kind of ragging on them for that.
That's so funny. I do think there is this thing that one of the things I liked that came from Kendrick Lamar's halftime performance was people having to deal with the fact that halftime doesn't have to be for them. And I really appreciated that, because my entire life, that's how I was forced to feel with every halftime show I ever watched, right? You were never making halftime shows for me.
Right.
I was forced to accept yours, but you're just telling me that's normal. But I'm like, no. I had to sit here and watch The Who and act like I'm grateful to watch The Who. I'm not. Bring the football back out. I don't like this band, And that's not me saying you're not allowed to like your band, but you don't realize all the times that you forced me to watch your thing. It was nice to see my thing for once, And
You're
I don't expect it to keep happening. It was nice to... I used to make fun of the concept of when people say I felt seen. Because to me, I was just like, stop being dramatic. That's how it felt for me, right? I get the sentiment you're coming from, but this feels dramatic, And I'm just going, just enjoy it. But then, I saw the Kendrick Lamar thing and the discourse around it, I went like, oh no, I feel seen. Yeah. Yeah, I feel seen right now.
Yeah.
Like, and I want to retroactively go back and apologize to everyone. It's like I didn't understand. I didn't understand, not to that degree, but there was something to that. I thought it was good for people.
I
I
agree.
really do. And I think it's the first time in a long time that we saw someone make an actual creative choice with the halftime show. I think they are all sort of recreating each other and wildly unoriginal. That's how I personally feel about the halftime shows. And I've seen artists that I dig, but I go like, you know what? I don't actually feel like what you're doing is that special. I think you are special, but I don't think what you're actually presenting right now is special. I think it's watered down and washed because you're afraid of people having hotter takes about it. I would rather see an artist make artistic choices. I'd rather see you go for something, and for better or for worse. Isn't that what the Super Bowl is? Like, I would rather the halftime show live and die by the same stakes as the coaches of the Super Bowl, where like the whole discourse about how people are going to talk about you, it functions on this one night, how you perform this one night. And it doesn't matter what you did to get here. This is the one night you're supposed to deliver, and this is how we'll talk about you from now on. I think there are people who Prince absolutely murdered it. And I'm not even like a Prince fan like that. I didn't grow up with Prince. I didn't know the history of it. I'm not as familiar with the songs, but I did not struggle to acknowledge that what he's doing right now is unreal. That was such a moment, and I'll never forget it. Bruno Mars, I wanted to hate on so bad. And
I
when
don't remember his.
Oh,
I'm sure I watched
he
it.
He opens with like this drum solo. I didn't even know he could play the drums, right? And there was something about the performance where I went like, you know what, man? I've been so vocal about my disinterest in you without really understanding too much about you. And it felt like such a display of overall talent where I went, this guy's so talented and I didn't know any of these things. And I was like openly having opinions about it. Like I felt ashamed.
Yeah.
And I think there was something to that where I'm like, I got to take a step back. I got to learn that lesson and be like, some of these people, they're incredible. Like the one, what's the halftime show I always wanted to see aside from getting a hip hop artist? Because that was growing up, like we just weren't represented in that way. Red Hot Chili Peppers is the one I always wanted to see. There's the one I said they would do an insane performance.
Yeah, they
and
would.
It would be so dope. So then the year that they got brought in as the featured artist, I was so angry. Because I just knew, like, once they were featured, I'm like, they're never going to get to headline. They're not going to, they're going to say they did it already now.
Yeah. Which is such a shame. I've seen them perform live,
Yeah.
and it's just unbelievable. Flea was doing this move where he was climbing perpendicular along part of the stage, which is so hard to do if you know anything about, like, calisthenics.
Yeah.
I mean, it would just, the athleticism of that alone, like, they put on a show.
So that's my thing is, like, we should prioritize someone who puts on a show over someone who has necessarily the catalog. And they have the catalog as well, so that just makes them a better choice, right? But I would go, I think on the back end, the rest of us would be more grateful for having seen an incredible performance than having seen somebody who played the hits, right? We know the hits. We can play the hits on our own. You know what I can't recreate? Somebody who can do a show like that.
Right.
I just need to see that show. Like, if it was OK Go, like, they're not a legendary band, but the showmanship of how they execute, like, the treadmill thing or the car thing with all the music video where they're driving in a car and the car is essentially an instrument and they're playing the car as they're like hitting guitars on the outside. And it's they'll do something that's going to be so impressive on a grander scale. I go like, this is worth paying attention to. It's really not about how big of an artist you are. Can you put on an incredible show? And I just think they should prioritize that more. In the Super Bowl, I think we'll end up with new stars. I think we'll end up appreciating new artists.
It would be cool, but they hire these people sometimes, and I'm going to lump Bruno Mars into this too, who obviously has to have so much talent to get to where he gets. But at that point, I think my issue with him and a lot of the people that they hire for these events is that they're so commercialized and they're so bound to the parameters of what the industry is, because they're such, without actually being, everyone says industry plant. That's like a big thing that gets thrown around these days. But that's kind of effectively what happens to someone that gets to that caliber. They become such a business. There's so many people whose paychecks depend on them that they're not really making any creative choices anymore. And so their songs just sound so like, I can't tell you the last time I enjoyed a Bruno Mars song because they sound so fucking commercial to me. Like, it's so boring.
So 24K Magic, that album is one of the best albums I've ever heard. And that was one of the ones where I turned a corner on him, where I went, okay, I didn't know you were this. If you're this, I'm in, right? And I sort of, that's not fair. When he did, what's the, Silk Sonic? When he did that with Anderson .Paak, I went, you're peaking. You're peaking, dude. This is, I don't know how you could get better than this. That was it. When he tapped into that phonic sound, that marketing, that imagery, that feel, I was like, whatever that is, I feel that in me, right? And I went, as long as you stay there, I'm with you, ride or die. And then as soon as he like kind of shifted and he's doing the thing with Sexy Red where he's like kind of like rapping, I go, like, I had no desire for this. I don't know why. I don't know who these fans are. I'm not going to say they don't exist. I know I'm not one of them. You know, it's one of those things where you ever like an artist and you feel them shift away from you and you go like, oh, they're not talking to me anymore.
For sure.
You know, that's how I look at Drake. That's how I look at a number of people. I'm not one of those people who's like openly hating on Drake. Like within the bat, like, yeah, I'm rooting for Kendrick, but I remember early Drake. I was obsessed with early Drake.
Oh, I mean, he was like the anthem for my college
Dude, he was
days.
great.
We're close in age, which that was like all we listened to was
Sure,
Drake.
yeah. And I went, for a time, I felt like he was speaking to me. And then there's a shift where I went, oh no, you're speaking to this other generation now. This isn't designed for me. And I keep him in the back of my head and I go like, all right, well, let's see if you come back. And he just never comes back. But then I think there's something to like, but is my generation where the money is? He's doing a career. If he was doing it for the art, he wouldn't even need the career part.
Right.
Know? So I go like, well, the money's where the money is. One of my favorite singers ever, I don't know if you remember this guy, is this guy named Music Soul Child, right? Neo soul legend, right? One of the greatest voices you've ever heard in your life. In my personal opinion, best male singer ever. That's my personal opinion, right? He tried this thing once late in his career, and I thought it was so interesting, and it didn't work. But I thought it was so interesting. Like, I really liked that he attempted it. He created a record label, and then the only artist he signed to the record label was himself as alter egos.
Okay.
And every alter ego did a different genre of music.
That's cool.
Because his argument was, yes, you guys love neo soul me, and that's how I became a legend or whatever, however you see me, right? But here's the reality on my end. That's not making money anymore. And it doesn't matter how good I am at it. The reality is it doesn't make the money. Y'all will go, it's good, and then not give me money, right? So I'm trying to move into these other spaces where I see the money is, right? So he created a country singer called Purple. He created a rapper called The Hustle. He did a number of different ones, right? And it didn't work. And that's
Jack of all trades, master of none.
It did. That's the thing, right? But I appreciated him attempting it. You know, I think part of why it didn't work was the rapping wasn't great. So like off rip, like that's a tough space to get into when you're not really naturally good at it. I think the country space coulda. Like I think he could have got over on that. And I don't know like why that didn't quite work out. Maybe that's a marketing thing, whatever. But if he would have stayed in the space of just vocal work where it's like, listen, it's just about singing melodies in a particular style. You're the most talented person I've ever heard sing. I think you can do it. Like I still think he should revisit it. I don't like country music, but with Beyonce's success and a number of these other black artists who are coming up in country, maybe he was just too early. Maybe like the boom is now. Maybe like the ears are available now. You can still sing, dude.
Maybe
like,
his fan base would be more open to it now.
Maybe. It's there was something to it. I just really liked the attempt at it. I always liked when I was growing up, you know, you're taught human stereotype in order to feel like they figure something out quicker so that they can move on.
Yeah, our brains need pattern recognition.
Exactly, right? And so like we do that with artistry. And we're so quick to call somebody a singer or an actor or a rapper. Like we want to label them so quickly. And I don't know why we don't just label people entertainers, right? It's all relative. And you can be talented at more than one thing. There's nothing that says you can't, which is why I like Donald Glover so much, right? I just think he got to shed it. I think Donald Glover in this weird way is like the Sammy Davis Jr. of this era, in that what we're acknowledging is that this dude is wildly talented, right? And we're not going to say he's one thing before the other. To me, Donald Glover is first comedian. and then these other things.
Yeah.
Right? To somebody else, he is rapper, singer, and then all these other things. To somebody else, he is actor. To somebody else, he is writer. Point is, he's succeeded at all of them. Clearly, he knows what he's doing. And I like the idea of just like conceptualizing him as an entertainer, as a creative. And I just think there's way more to be gained if you train people to take a step back and acknowledge people as just artists and creators, just creatives, as opposed to like labeling whatever you found them as first. Because that's kind of irrelevant in my head. You know what I mean? Because if all right, well then The Rock's not an actor and he's a failed football player. That's who he is. You know what I mean? So I just like, what's the point of that? As opposed
That's a great example.
He just like the Terry Crews, same thing, right? Like they're not the first. And so,
the wrestling to acting pipeline is strong.
I think it should
John
be
Cena.
stronger.
Yeah.
I'm actually shocked when you consider how much they have to act to do the job the whole time. I go, how is it there more of a space for this? Dude, action movies are here all the time. Why do they got to do the cheap ones? You know what I mean?
They're not doing the cheap ones because both of the, well, I guess I love both of them in the Fast and Furious.
Okay, so the Fast and Furious was a franchise built before their involvement, right? But I would say they will try to transition somebody out of one creative space into another space, but into like a low budget, cheap version of something. They won't transfer them into like a high production, high expectation.
Not before they prove
role.
themselves.
Yes,
right?
It's always a prove yourself first. And I go like, I feel like the entire WWE experience was the proving themselves. Since they're not that guy and people think they're that guy.
Yeah, you're right.
I'd say that was pretty good acting, man. I'm going to trust him to do this role. I would just like to see that because I think you're training people to expect less as well from them, right? So like when The Rock gets the Scorpion King, right? And as a kid, I loved it, but I'm a kid, right? As an adult, I watch it and I go like, this is what you got this dude doing? Like it feels beneath him from the standpoint of like, I think he was capable of so much more, but now we're going to be forced to look at him through this prism of like, maybe that's, now I guess I'm thinking of like, maybe that's all he could do. As opposed to, no, he didn't get to do more. So now we have to look at him this limited. I would rather see them take bigger swings, as I think what I'm getting at, right? Jump straight into the Matrix. Jump straight into like whatever these high, you know what I mean? Right into a TV series. Like, if there could have been at least one WWE wrestler in like Game of Thrones, I think that would have been awesome.
Ooh, that's cool.
I think that would have been awesome. I think
well, actually, the guy that was the Mountain, he was an athlete.
He was like a bodybuilder. Mm-hmm. Yeah, which I'm all for. But I think that lends intrigue to the casting as well. Like the variety of where did you pull these people from in order to give this feel, I think is something interesting in casting. Maybe I don't think all casting should be traditional actors. And maybe I'm in the minority in that, but I'm just saying like sometimes that adds a little wrinkle to the perception of the plot where you're like, it is kind of fun, in the second Matrix, one of the captains of the ships of the rebellion was Roy Jones Jr., who was like one of the greatest boxers of all time. No acting experience whatsoever, right? And he plays like a major role. And it's just cool to be like, it's Roy Jones Jr. Like, it doesn't hurt the plot any, but you just go like, that's cool that you found a way to get that in without undercutting what we're doing here.
Yeah, I think
I'd like to see more of that.
Was it called Nomad, that movie that like swept at the Oscars a few years ago?
Frances McDormand.
Yeah, so I think everyone, if I'm remembering correctly, she was the only actress in that movie. Everybody else was just like a person on the street.
See, I love the idea of that. Like, I love, because to me, now when it's that extreme, now you're getting into a gimmick. And I am here for a movie that has a gimmick in it. Because I want to be like, okay, we're doing something special here, so let's see how it goes. One of my favorite things I ever saw was Kung Pao, Into the Fist. I don't know if you ever saw this movie.
I didn't.
I think where it failed is they did a very poor job of telling people what it actually was, so people weren't looking at it correctly when they saw it. So when we were kids, the trailer was a guy got into a kung fu fight with a cow, right? Absolutely absurd. No one's trying to sell it as like, yo, this is crazy cool, right? It was supposed to be absurd. But what they never tell you, unless you really like get into it, is the movie is an old kung fu movie that existed already.
Oh, is this the one where they dubbed in new acting into it? I've heard about
over
this.
the movie to make a new story.
That's a really cool idea.
So then they only shot a couple of scenes so that it could make sense. So the production is like minimal, They're taking an existing thing and they're just turning it into something else. When you know that, and then you see what jokes they chose to do, you're like, that's really funny. That's really creative that you turned this into that. And that's where the fun lies. But if you're not in on the gimmick, then you're like, what the fuck am I looking at? I would like to see more gimmick plots. Yeah, I think there's something to that. And I don't think that should be the majority of movies. But I do think it's a thing that should be attempted from time to time. I want to see somebody get creative in this new way and go, oh, what would it be like to delve into something that way? I think that's cool.
And it opens the door to building these communities when a movie becomes a cult classic and people get so into it and there's this crazy fandom. There's something really fucking fun about crazy fandom.
I've only had crazy fandom for one project ever, and I miss it so much.
I'm in crazy fandom right now with this band Sleep Token, I think, because I'm like going through it.
Tell me about it. What's Sleep Token?
They're this band. They got really,
Bill Cosby?
really
What's
fucking
the?
huge.
It seems weird.
No.
It's a weird name. Sleep Token.
It's a weird name because it's a weird concept.
Sorry.
So it's got all this like lore, and the whole thing is they're masked guys. They don't want anybody to know their identities. They always wear masks on stage. They paint themselves.
I do like that. Can I chime in here for a second?
Yeah, please.
There was always this idea I had. The voice sort of touches on it in their own way, but I always said one of the problems with music is that everybody has to be too pretty.
Yes.
And I said, you know what would be great is if you had one record label where you couldn't see anybody.
Yeah.
At most, you could see their silhouettes.
This is that, but they're not the first to do it because Slipknot notoriously got really huge for doing that as well.
Totally.
And for wearing masks all the time. Yeah, totally. But their thing is, so Sleep is the name of a god. The lead singer, Vessel, he saw the god in a dream.
I love that someone could go, hi,
so
my name is
cool.
Vessel.
Yeah. It's so fucking cool. Anyway, I am down the deepest TikTok rabbit hole of history and people analyzing lyrics.
Is this an American band?
UK.
It is a UK band. Okay. It felt very European, and I tried to say American first just to not be like biased.
No, I think the UK is ahead of us musically. I'll probably die on that hill.
Okay.
But yeah, there's all this kind of lore, and they make so many references to Greek mythology, and they go like really hard in the paint on having through lines like from this record, and this artwork connects to this and this album. And this one album, every single song and title is correlated to the depth of the ocean at certain points, and they have all this artwork that correlates with that.
Can you explain it to me? How would it be correlated to the depth of the ocean? What does that mean?
So they have a nautical themed album basically.
Okay.
And actually, it's like one of the first songs that I started listening to obsessively of theirs is like the first song on that album that's called Atlantic. It's such a beautiful song. And they're technically metal, but they genre mix like you would not fucking believe.
Okay,
they just came out with a song a couple days ago that starts with the music from like a music box, and then it's got like reggaeton in it, and then it goes into like the heaviest of metal riffs too. Like they just really fuck around with whatever it is, and none of it matters. Like they're above genre.
So when we were younger, that used to be a big question of just like, what genre of music are you into, right? And for me, like as I think about the artists I listen to now, it's so genre bending that I go like, I don't know that I know that answer. Like, well, I just like people doing creative work.
Me too.
Like, but beyond that, I'm like, I mean, I'm down to go anywhere as long as it's good. Like, I don't really care what the genre is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a new thing that kids are growing up with now, where I go like, it's not really genre specific, dude. Like it's vaguely influenced by this, but they're going to go over here too. So,
well, it helps with why they have such an insane fandom, and there's all these forums, and there's people that go out of their way to try to explain all these, like they're building up to a new album right now that's getting released in May, and what they did is
they out of the ocean at this
out
point?
of the ocean at this point.
Okay,
yes.
I didn't know, like, is this a Kirk Douglas thing or whatever his name is?
No, but they did this thing where they teased the release of a new song, and they hired this weatherman who works at a station in North Carolina, and the guy was doing weather reports and dropping hints about when the song would be released. And then people are like deep in this Reddit forum going, hey, he said this, and this is 4x4, so it must be coming out April 4th. And all of these letters got left off of this map of the weather of these North Carolina cities.
Love this.
And then it spelled out the name of the song, and then the band went in and changed the cover
These are the kind of people who have to date someone else who is also into this exact same thing.
For sure.
Because it sounds insane to
It is
anyone
insane.
who's not like, you have to date somebody who is also like, you saw the weatherman, right? Yeah, totally. Okay, let's figure this out together.
I know, and it kills me because I am my own island. Like, I don't have any other friends that listen to them or listen to metal in general.
Okay.
So I have to be online for me to find any community around this
totally.
at all.
I feel like I know exactly which one of my friends would be like, no, this makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I know exactly who to think of.
JB, it's fun. Like, I've been having so much fun.
That.
I've gotten to put down my own bullshit, like worrying about work, worrying about this and that. Yeah. And then I'm just like on TikTok for an hour, like reading up on sleep token lore and watching people explain what the weatherman said this week to me. And I'm like, yeah.
Killer is. And you're out here like, I'm just trying to figure out where this next hidden show is.
Yeah.
That's just trying to put together the clues.
But it's so fun. It's fun to be invested in something like that. And I haven't had that kind of investment in entertainment in a very long time.
Okay, here's my pitch for a TikTok series that you can do. Because you would have to pull this off. Mm-hmm. All right. Batman, many people forget, his superpower is that he's the world's greatest detective. That is Batman's superpower. They go like, he's a ninja and he's rich and all this stuff. Yeah, no, that's the extra. The ability is he's the world's greatest superhero. Excuse me, the world's greatest detective. I say you dress up as Batman, and then you try to openly solve these sleep token cases. And if you
I'm not smart enough.
Well, listen, you got resources. You know who to reach out to. You've got their TikTok name. Reach out and go, hey, this is Batman.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to solve the case for all of us, right? I think if the end result of your posts is that you do figure it out, that's a fun series.
That is a fun series.
To see you go through that ad.
Instead of me just watching other people that are doing it.
Yes. And that's the thing. You still get to watch other people, but now you found a fun way to participate. Mm-hmm. And now, within the fandom of Sleep Token, there's this Batman girl who does these deep dives.
Do you know what's funny? Their costumes kind of look Batman-esque.
Oh, do they really?
Yeah, a little bit.
I don't know anyone. I don't believe anyone who says they wouldn't want to try to dress up like Batman. Mm-hmm. I think there is a general curiosity of like, I just kind of want to know, like, could I pull it off?
I mean, I love a cape.
There's something to it. There's something to it. I've always wanted to run in one because I just want to see like how much it hinders. Like, I want to see how hard it is. There's something to it where I go like, listen, man, it can't be helpful. There's no way it's helpful. No. I just want to know, like, all right, I've been in fights, but how much would that hold me back? I just want to know, what moves are we really considering? Oh, those are out? Because, okay, got it. Yeah, because you ever seen people train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with a gi on?
Yeah.
Yeah, quick, that cape is working against you with somebody who's just like, yeah, okay, my guy.
Well, part of it, I've taken some classes, and some of the chokes that we learned were based on grabbing the gi. So,
yeah, that's my point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, your clothes are the weapon against you. Imagine being taken to court for assault with a deadly weapon and them listing your own shirt as their weapon.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, yeah, no, were you wearing clothes? Well, then now it's attempted murder with a weapon. I think there's something interesting to that. I think
that's a good choke technique with the collar grab and the wrist up.
I also think it's the most disrespectful thing to choke someone with their own clothing. Because it's also, you're required to wear clothing by law. Mm-hmm. So you don't really get to opt
Yeah, but I couldn't do the collar choke on you when you don't have a collar.
Not with that attitude, you can't. But I'm sure there's someone out there like, I'll figure it out. I know a BJJ guy in Philly. He's great. He looks like Travis Kelce. He gets stopped as Travis all the time. He's hilarious. And he does these posts where he shows you how to defend yourself if random people just try to attack you in scenarios. But these are like random, like you're on the street and somebody comes at you like this scenarios, right? I promise you, if we reached out to him, he'd be like, "Oh yeah, regular T-shirt. I'll show you how to put somebody unconscious in 3 seconds with a regular collar tee. Yeah. Oh, him cut? Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah, he's done."
Tell me if this has happened to you, because this would happen to me whenever I did. There was like a little bit of an era where for like 6 months I was taking BJJ classes. I was getting them off Groupon and I was like, this is fun. Yeah. But then what ended up happening to me is I would start daydreaming about people attacking me so I could like check out my new skills.
Totally. No, that's the thing. That's the dangerous thing, right? I took some boxing classes and then all of a sudden I just find myself shadow boxing to no one. I'm in the street or somewhere. Yeah, I'm on a sidewalk. Here's the thing that was really funny to me, and I don't think you would run into it in BJJ, but when you shadow box, you're always fighting someone smaller than you. Like if you look at the placement of punches, you're like, who am I bullying right now? This is
a girl.
Yeah, like this feels like I'm practicing beating up a spouse. This is crazy. I'm 6'3". Where I'm throwing my punches, you're 5'8", probably. Yeah. I'm never fighting someone my size when I'm fantasizing the fight. No, I have the advantages in my hypothetical.
That's so funny.
I've only seen Canelo shadow box and be punching like upward. And I'd be like, oh, that's why he's good. Okay.
But at 6'3", like there's not a lot of people that much taller than you.
There's plenty. Yeah. And those are also, you got to remember, like, people who are bigger than you, they're looking for somebody that they feel like they're allowed to flex at. You know what I mean? When you're 6'5" and you're coming at someone 5'8", it looks bad. If I'm 6'3", they're like, I get away with that. You know? So the big guys, they want to try to assert themselves too much with me. It is, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think there's something to. Imagine you just got that into BJJ. You just started like rolling with random things you came across, you know?
I'm in a dark parking lot alone on purpose. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Let me check it out.
Yeah, you wrap up some cone. Yeah. There's this MMA fighter I follow. I can never say her name right. I don't want to butcher it. I think her last name is like Demopoulos or something like that. She fights out of Vegas, but she does these things where she tries to figure out if she can choke herself. Like she will do, or like if it's not choke herself, it's like put one of her limbs in a lock. Like she will.
Isn't that like tickling yourself though? Where you're like, it's no, because I know I'm tickling myself.
Yeah, that's the weird thing. It's like she tries to find a lock where she actually doesn't know what she can do about it, and then she has to figure out what she can do about it. And it really is like, it sounds like you would just go, well, just do that. You're in control of it. But she finds the position where she's like, oh shit, no, I'm stuck. Oh no. All right, how do I work my way out of this? And I do think there's something interesting about that. And I do think there's something wildly unhealthy about that.
Yeah.
Where I go like, I think you've done it enough. I think new hobby. Let's find one. I'll help you find it. You seem great, but I want you to not seem too sick. You know, she does this fun thing after she wins a fight. Whoever the reporters are who will come in to do the in-ring interview, she'll always jump into their arms for the interview. She just does it. So now it's like a known thing. So now they don't let anybody go interview her unless they believe that they can hold her. But she's gonna jump in your arms.
Yeah.
It's become like a really funny thing that she's got going. I wish we did that more in comedy.
Jumped into a host's arms.
More established gimmicks.
Oh, yeah.
So like Bert Kreischer will always take his shirt off, and it's a thing. And it does nothing to enhance the comedy other than you go like, that's Bert. You know how Bert's Bert. You know, and I do like that. There's something to that where I wish we all had some designated thing where it's just what you do.
Yeah.
It's what you do. It's not really.
You better be okay with doing it forever, though, because I think once you tie yourself down to that sort of gimmick or that kind of signature move, you then have to do it for like. No one wants Bert to have his shirt on. Yeah.
Still doing that.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be like, yeah, this 90-year-old's awesome. like, this guy's awesome. So pick your gimmick wisely. But I do think there's something to that because again, it's got nothing to do with your jokes. Like you still got to do your show. But if you can find like this little wrinkle of just something you did, Mark Norman's got comedy. Like I like that. It's like I don't think that's hurting anything. I think it's fun, and it's something to identify.
Doesn't he close with "I'm Kevin Hart"?
Yeah. Thank you. I'm Kevin Hart. That's such a great. I remember the first time I seen him do that, and I was like, I am so jealous of that.
But then no one else can do that. Like that's now taken.
It's now his thing. Yeah, but I think it's important that we all coin something. I used to say we should coin something, and we should do more about set dressing the stages we perform on.
I agree.
I do think there's something to you're trying to brand an experience. So you should do something to help people feel that when you're on stage, whether that be like just change the mic and like maybe you have a specific colored mic, right? Or you do something like Steven Tyler does the scarf on the mic stand. Whatever your thing is, I think we would all be better off for accentuating what it's like to watch us.
And that's how you know someone's skill too when they go above that. Because I was never like particularly into stand-up before I started doing stand-up. Okay. But when I was in college, I had an ex-boyfriend that introduced me to Cat Williams. And so that like the special with the green suit,
yes,
I would watch a bajillion times.
I love that. I love the concept of that as an introduction.
Right? It was one of the first specials I saw.
Is so
I know.
One of a kind.
He really is. But that is such, and I didn't even think about it until many years later, that his stand-up on its own is so strong that he is able to interrupt his special, bring Little John out, have him do a fucking song, and then it doesn't take any momentum away from the stand-up. Like, you want to talk about how skilled you are?
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy. Can you imagine if
No.
I brought some like musician up in the middle of my fucking set? I can't recover from that.
I'd be like, thank God. No, I'm joking. No, totally joking. But yeah, that's how do you overcome something like that? That's so insane. But if it's a wrinkle of your personality, your energy, your
which
flavor,
it totally is for Kat,
right? It fit, and so it didn't even seem like an outlandish idea.
No, not at all.
Oh, so we're doing this now. Okay,
it just
cool.
blended into the special.
Yeah, there's something to that. There's something to that, and I do think there's something to these physically small people who are larger than life personalities, right? There's something to Kat. There's something to Kevin Hart. Like when you see them in person, and you really get to see like how small they are, right? And this isn't me like trying to make fun or anything like that. I look up to both of them.
Yeah.
But my point is,
not technically.
Yeah, metaphorically. There's something to it. Forces you to re-evaluate how you are processing power and strength and ability and gifts. You know what I mean? I grew up in sports, right? And they reward size. And in entertainment, it almost feels like it's the exact opposite. Like the bigger you are, the less useful you are. The smaller you are, the more things we can use you for. You know? And so I'm watching, these guys who like I'm evaluating them with my basketball brain. I'm going like, I'll murder this guy, right? But we're in this other space where I'm like, oh my God, he'll murder me. This is great. How do you have all the power right now? Like there is something interesting to the power dynamics of how they shift creatively. And I am really fascinated with those guys because they are larger than life. And I know they don't like being compared to each other, but that's their thing to fish out. I'm saying I like you both. And to see someone, because I look at that as like, that's your lot in life. Because I grew up with sports brain. When you're a man and you're that physically short, I'm going, you have so much to overcome relative to that because of how we treat short people, right? So then to see the power that they amass, you go, bro, you are killing it is an understatement to what you have figured out how to do. Like it really is impressive. And it's one of those things where,
and it's not despite it; it's actually because of it.
Yeah, they've found how to make it work for themselves, right? But their way. With that they're at peace with, right? It's not like anytime people make short jokes about Kevin Hart, like I just think kind of like, man, like whatever. Like it's so easy to do that it sort of holds no value. Like other people don't even find it that funny because we're all like, man, you could, yeah, of course. What can you do that's better than that? And I think you can see them feel that same way. Like when people do it, like they'll go along with it out of like professionalism, but they're like, all right, man.
Heard it all.
Yeah, it's like, what are you gonna say that's new? You know what I mean? I work with Brad Williams. He's a dwarf. What dwarf joke do you think you're coming with? That he's going to be like, get the fuck out of here.
That he hasn't himself made.
He knows the punchline. Yeah, like he's heard them all. There's something to that. There's something to that. And I think we all experience that to some degree, right? It's rare that people are coming to me with black jokes that I'm just like, didn't see that coming. Like, yeah, okay, man, I get it. Yes, you made a correlation. Got it.
Has anything crazy happened on the road with Brad?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Bro, I've been called the N-word so many times, and this is not by I want to make it clear. I'm not implying.
By Brad? No.
No. Could you imagine? No, I'm not implying that is Brad's fan base. What I'm saying is that Brad's fan base is probably like 95% amazing, but you also don't have control over who else likes you. And you don't have control over who buys tickets, right?
No, you don't.
So you get like a 5% of like, well, I don't love them. That's crazy. Like I had a guy tell me once after a show that he didn't say that slavery wasn't real. He said that black people shouldn't be able to prey on white guilt with slavery because there were white slaves as well. And I said, well, yeah, there were white slaves, but that doesn't make slavery any worse or any better, right? Like slavery is still just as bad as we're talking about. And then he goes, well, if we're really being honest, anybody, I couldn't believe he said this. He said, anybody who could get caught and made a slave, maybe they just don't deserve our empathy. That dude said it to my face. Wow. Outside of a show that, by the way, I got a standing ovation at that show. And then outside, he's the first guy I run into. Like, way to take away my high. Like, way to just bring me down. Dude.
That's what he was going for.
Sure, totally. And then, like, now I'm having this debate in my head of, am I going to punch this old white man or am I just going to let him go, right? And that's one of the things that I think is so unfair in life is that the law forces me to leave that to karma. And I go,
Are you
like,
good at doing that?
yeah, but I don't like that I am.
Yeah.
There are times that I wish I just unloaded on somebody. But it's also like I'm always like, well, be the bigger person, and this is the bigger goal, and these people mathematically got to exist, and you encountered one, right? Like I just justify like that, but it's not a great feeling. Like I'm really tired of being the bigger person. Let's put it that way, But I've had like less extreme, wild things happen as well because I don't want to leave it like, yeah, this is what happens at a Brad Williams show because the crowds are amazing,
Of course,
right? But I will also. Here's an interesting one. The type of women that will hit on me after shows have drastically changed
from
since
what
I
to
was
what?
a younger comic, right?
Yeah,
So I'm
say
38, but like let's say like from the time I was 23 to I don't know 34, I was probably getting hit on by mostly people in my age range to maybe slightly younger than me, right? Rarely it was older. And now it's almost exclusively older. And I don't know what I did to stop being attractive to people younger than me or my own age. But like it's all older women are very too forward with me. There's some, and I don't know. I'm not here to speak about women or what it's like. I can't tell you.
Is it something you're saying on stage maybe?
I don't know. I really don't know. But I mean, I've had people say wild things to me. I had an elderly lady come up to me and she said, if I was a younger woman, I'd suck your dick off. And I went, who wins in that? I don't even know. No one wins there. That was all bad, what you just said. All bad. So I get a lot of that. I get a lot of, I'll take pictures with people after shows, and I get a lot of hand placement things where I go like, don't love that. Don't love that. Snap the picture. What do you mean another angle? No, we're done. Some people, there is this weird thing when you are a black comic and you are performing to mainstream crowds, right? You're performing to all different kinds of races. What ends up happening is if you are remotely edgy, if you do any kind of social commentary around race, right? They will take that as an invite to tell you the most fucked up joke they know. Because they'll be like, but you get it. Like, you get why it's okay, right? And I go, I get why it would be okay if it was a good joke.
Yeah.
What you're saying is super fucked up.
Yeah.
And
but they think you opened the door for it because you brought it up.
Yeah. And it shows you how many people don't really have an understanding of what you're really doing. And that's the bummer. Like, that's the buzzkill of being creative, right? The idea is like, I really put a lot of work into something that like, hey, this is really clever how this works if you really think it through, right? Like, that's the fun of it. And then you realize, but only so many people keep up with that. Some people, they're so base level with how they interpret it that no matter what you say you meant, all they heard was blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And then they just run with it being blah, blah, blah.
And that's the difference between being on the road and doing local shows where people hear, you're on stage at the Improv or something. Mm-hmm. People here have seen 1,000 different comedy shows. They're very entwined with like the nuts and bolts and how it works and the understanding of that versus you go on the road and you do a show in Nebraska and people are taking things at face value and they're not as exposed, right? Because of where they're living.
On the contrary, I'll take the show in Nebraska over here all day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually think performing here is awful. And I love LA, right? But what I mean is it doesn't simulate the road. Therefore, it's the most useless.
No, it doesn't at all. It doesn't at all.
So for me, I go, it's the most useless because the money's out there. Mm-hmm. So I go like, if you can only be funny in an echo chamber, how funny are you really?
Right.
Like, that's my thing. And I go like, all right, so if this is your safe space and you can only be funny out here because people just get this much, well, then what I'm hearing is you can be a funny person, but you haven't learned how to talk to people, right? Because when you go out there, those are people. Mm-hmm. Those are people.
And that's why sometimes they're reacting weirdly to you because they're also not used to talking to anyone who's in entertainment.
Yes.
It's a weird, they've got this parasocial relationship with you because they just watched you talk for an hour. Mm-hmm. And then they're like, let me say this wild thing to this person I'm getting one chance to meet.
Yes.
And they're not exposed to it like you would be living here. So it kind of creates this weird dynamic.
Totally. Like, I feel like people here, it's going too far. Like, the pendulum has swung too far where they're trying too hard to be creative that they're actually not making anything worthwhile because they're trying to be so different, so special. And I think it's important to be different and special relative to being understood, right? But the baseline, you still need to be understood. And that's where I go like, I'll see comics kill in LA, and I'll go like, you'll die the slowest death on the road. This is crazy. None of this will work. None of this will work. And so when I'm prepping my act, like I'm prepping conscious of the road. So there are things in LA that I know this will work here. I'm not doing it because it's useless. It's only for here. What's the point? You know? So I'm trying to build conscious of like, who am I actually going to be in front of when it matters? And I wish I saw more comics do that. That's my personal taste, though. Because I just go like, all right, man, it feels like you're building an act that you're never going to get to use. So what's the point of that, you know? At that point, you're a hobbyist. So you're like in the way of like a working comic. The way I view a working comic. But that's just my take on that. Like, I'm not trying to like put anybody down. It's just, I think once you've experienced something and you listen to somebody talk about something, having not experienced it, they sound ignorant to you because you're like, you don't even know what you're not aware of yet.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm sure I sound that way to somebody who's done more than me right now. Right? But it's just, that's a natural human thing. So it's one of those, when every time I come back home and I'm doing local shows, they're my least favorite shows. They're easily my least favorite shows. Because I'm watching a lot of people do stuff that I think doesn't matter. And the amount of energy and emotion and stakes that they think are to it, I just go, it's not. It's like that. You think you're being productive, you're wasting your time right now.
The people that don't do out of town shows, though, they don't have opportunities to do them, or they don't go out of their way to do them. Whatever it is,
I would argue they don't go out of their way to do them because it's possible.
And they're performing for industry. That's what it is. They're like formulating their acts for a clip, a reel that's going to go online, right?
Totally.
They're formulating their act for their manager who's coming to scout them that night, or whatever it is. They're not worried about connecting with, like, I don't mean this derogatorily, but like regular people.
Yeah.
They're not trying to connect with regular people.
That's the issue with the industry in general, right? Is that the industry in general is forcing them to choose one over the other, as opposed to creating a system where they both coexist, because they're going to have to. So my argument is, yes, there's a value to impressing industry so that they get behind you and push you in whatever these spaces are. But once you get to those spaces, do you have the skill set to succeed, or are you going to be pushed to the side eventually for the next you, and they're going to give somebody another case? Like, I think a lot of time management and agencies will look at you as like a meal ticket for a length of time, not a creative to be invested with long term.
That's why you got to build stand-up from the bottom up. Like, you can't be like, oh, I'm going to become an industry darling and then I'll learn how to connect to regular people. I think if you learn how to connect to regular people first, you will inevitably be good at connecting. Tell me what you think about this, because I have this theory. It's like kind of related to this. I think that a comedian who's an exceptional joke writer and who's very seasoned will always be great at crowd work. But I think a comedian who's exceptional at crowd work isn't necessarily amazing at joke writing. How do you feel about that?
I think it's fair.
Yeah.
Well, because one takes the work and the other takes, let me rephrase that. They both take their versions of experience, right? The work for doing crowd work is doing crowd work. But if you write enough jokes, you are essentially doing the formulas in your head ahead of time. So something's going to look familiar enough that you can repurpose it, or repurpose a joke you've written in the format of what you need to say in that moment. The other way around doesn't work because you're not writing jokes. So yeah, that totally makes sense. One takes more work than the other. I'm not here to shit on crowd work comics. I just do think it's overstated. You know what I mean? Like, it's not as special as people make it out to sound, because I still come from a time where people believed that most of everything you're saying on stage, you're coming up with on the spot.
Right.
Like, that they still don't believe that this was written and crafted and curated, and that you're such a good performer, you can make it feel fresh. Right. So you're performing to these crowds who are like, half of them get what you're doing and the other half totally don't get that that's what's happening right now. Right. I think if more people, in my opinion, I think if more people got familiar with what kind of stuff comes out when people are riffing rather than prepared, they would stop caring to hear people riff. You know, I think there's a misconception as to how good the content is when you riff. You know, yeah, you had a great moment. You're up here for an hour.
It's replicated so many times though, like having gone on the road with people, seeing them do certain things that sound like crowd work, but I'm like, you made that exact same joke last week when that person said the exact same thing over here that they said in Nashville. And like you see behind the curtain and you're like, oh, okay, this is really making it impossible for me to be impressed by what the internet is impressed by.
So a real popular thing that rappers do, and I remember figuring this out early, and it was such a buzzkill, was so a big part of being a rapper is being able to freestyle, right? And what a lot of people don't know is most freestyles are written at this point, you know, and that's been for a long time. That's not to say that some people don't truly freestyle, but it's not as common as you would like to believe. So during rap concerts, it's always popular for at least in one section of the show, they're just gonna freestyle, right? And there's a big name artist who I'm not gonna name because I love him so much and I don't want him to think I'm trying to bring him down, right? But big classic Hall of Fame artist. And he's doing this performance, and the performance is great. Now he's going to do a rap about the city, just to do a rap about the city, just this freestyle. And he does it, and he's got these punchlines, and the punchlines hit great. And this is a big moment. You're like, oh, this is great. And then I go to see him in another city. He does the exact same freestyle. You just realize it's just Mad Libs, and he can just insert the city here, insert the rhymes are the same, the punchlines are the same. So he's doing a scheduled rap, a written rap, where he can change out 3 words, right? And it was such a buzzkill. But at the same time, it's like, to a degree, that's what most crowd work is.
It is.
You know what I mean?
It's the lowest hanging fruit. Yeah. I was on a show last night at this hostel, right? So the whole crowd is people from out of town. And it's like, this guy was being so obnoxious. He was talking through my whole set. And he finally, I like kept asking him to stop and kept like putting him in his place. Yeah. Finally, he got up and left, and he was from Dubai. And all I said after he left was, I go, that's why we got to close the borders. And I got like the most uproarious applause. And it's like, I just said the lowest hanging fruit fucking thing. And that's all that crowd work is. Totally. And it's like, you pick the lowest hanging fruit. You say the thing that people don't want you to say because you know that's what's going to get them. Sure. And then boom, it gets them.
So my argument is always like, okay, so take that punchline, right? You go, that's why we got to close the borders. Now, you can make that same punchline from a variety of perspectives, pending how you word it. You can communicate the same thing, but the perspective from which you say it from helps inform the audience the kind of person you are. Like, that's the stuff that I get into really trickily, right? So I would go, okay, so instead of saying that's why we should, because that implies what side you're on, right? I would say like, God, do you think this is why? Right? And then being inquisitive about it and then saying the exact same sentence, right? Places you in a different position politically in their minds and helps you get perceived. You're still making the same joke, right? But you're sort of like navigating your way around the laser beams of being placed in a section,
yeah,
right?
Totally.
So there's this thing I like doing where this is my argument. And listen, unless you're really looking for it, you're not going to see it. But I think one of the best ways to win over a crowd that would be against your stance is to incept them with your stance. Right? So if you remember Inception, the point is you go into somebody's mind and you put an idea there that they feel like they came up with. And as long as they feel like they came up with it, it's organic and it can't be pulled out. But if they feel like you gave them the idea, then it doesn't hold, right? Same concept. So I will try to, if I want to make a statement, instead of making the statement, I will give you all the information I believe you need to come to that conclusion on your own. And then when you come there, you can't say that I took a side. Right? It's your side. That's why you're laughing.
Yeah.
That's the side you came up. You just thought that, man. And I really like that. There's this bit I did for one day where it was about how if pronouns are just words that we use to identify something, why is it that the people who were so against pronouns are so excited to call it the Gulf of America, right? And it's real, like, I'm not saying you're bad. I'm asking, why is this if that? I'm just asking you, right? It's for you to come to your own conclusion, right? And my tag isn't even like a tag. My tag is just, can you understand my confusion? No judgment. I'm not directing it, right? I'm just putting it out there for you to notice the hypocrisy of it. And then if you laugh, hypocrisy is acknowledged. If you don't laugh, either it's not acknowledged or you're too stupid to figure it out. Yep. Like either or I go like, hey, that's fine with me. But excuse me, the joke hit great. And I just felt like, all right, I got no need to do it anymore. You know, I just put it up as a clip and there it was, right? And then we did some commentary and we moved the fuck on. But I just feel like there are more tactful ways to go about disagreeing with people. And I would like to see more comics exercise that, because I think there's a power to it, right? And I think it's a way to like flex your intelligence around the situation. You can have a firm stance, but you don't have to present it as one in order to get them on your side. Is the point to like get them on your side, or is the point to go like you suck?
Right.
If it's you suck, then yeah, be blunt, right? But if it's to like try to sway their mind, you got to be a little more elusive, like bait them in, judo them into a throw, and then you're like, oh shit, you just used me against me, you know? There's something to that.
I love that so much.
Yeah.
Well, JB Ball, where can people find you? What do you have going on?
My new special just came out, my new hour special. It's on YouTube right now. It's called Jesus in the Crack House. It is not blasphemous. People are worried about that.
I love that name so much.
It makes total sense when you hear the story. It's one of those where when I told people on tour, anytime I would say the name of the special is going to be Jesus in the Crack House, everybody would lose their minds. Like they were like, yes, that has to be it. So watch the special. You'll see why. It makes total sense. I'm super proud of it. It's great. It's on YouTube. We're over 100,000 views already. So I'm super encouraged about that.
Amazing.
And then find me on social media at Ball for President. That's Ball, the number 4 president. And yeah, dude, just give me a follow. Check out what I'm doing. I'm posting clips every day. They're going great. I really like what I'm seeing in the comment sections because it's like 95% positive. And then the 5% of people who want to argue, they're the dumbest arguments I've ever seen in my life.
It's engagement, though.
Engagement's engagement, but it's really fun to watch people argue for you.
Yeah.
That's when I'm like, oh, I'm doing something.
That's the best. I know. I stopped responding to negative comments, and I just let other people comment in support.
Yeah, post and ghost. Yeah.
Post and ghost.
Yeah, do it all the time. But every now and again, somebody says something, I go like, okay, what are we doing here? Can I tell you one really quick?
Yeah.
So I have this joke right now about how why diversity is so great in this country. And it's great because, like, if you look at the results of every Olympics, that's why we're winning so many medals every Olympics, right? Because we're using other people's people. And I was just trying to do this breakdown of how I feel like we're like a dude who's got the right Pokemon for every situation when it comes to Olympic events, right? And so, like, they're like, do you want to do the 100-meter dash, 100-meter women's dash? That's fine. Black girl, I choose you. And we throw her out there in Sha'Carri Richardson, right? So I do the next line, and this is my real reason, just to not say I choose you again, right? I chose to do Scarface, where I go say hello to my little, and then I do the throw, right? It means the same thing, but I say hello to my little white boy, and it's for where I say like it's like men's 100-meter freestyle swimming or something like that, right? And so I say hello to my little white boy. And it's Michael Phelps. And so many people are trying to come in the comments like, Michael Phelps is like 6'5" with a 7-foot wingspan, little white boy. And I go, it's a Scarface reference.
Yeah.
Has nothing to do with his physical size. There are so many comments of people like, little white boy, Michael Phelps is huge. I fucking know, you idiot. Like, there are so many people who are trying to make it racial, and it's not. Like, I understand the premise is overall about race, right? But they're trying to make it sound as if I'm trying to put down Michael Phelps for being white, when Michael Phelps is one of my favorite athletes ever. I was obsessed with it. I think he's incredible. But that doesn't mean I can't call him a white boy, since he's a white boy. If you call me a black boy, it might have a little tinge to it.
Careful.
Maybe the rules don't work the same, but you get what I'm saying, right? So I just think there's something to. It's funny to see how people will parse everything you say in order to try to make their point, even though it's completely irrelevant to the point you were making, and they know that.
Yeah.
And they're still trying to like pull you down into the muck.
That's the internet for you.
You're not gonna get me, man. You're not. I don't care. I don't care what you think. That joke was really fucking good.
Good. Well, go watch the special, everybody, and thank you so much for doing the show.
Thank you, Galina.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. Bye.